Good morning. It's good to be sharing with you again. I'm sure you're tired of me by now, but God works. Our reading comes from Romans 8, and I'm reading from verse 26. Hear the word of the Lord, as spoken by Paul to the community in Rome. In the same way, the Spirit also comes to help us, weak as we are. For we do not know how we ought to pray. The Spirit Himself pleads with God for us in groans that words cannot express. And God, who sees into our hearts, knows what the thought of the Spirit is, because the Spirit pleads with God on behalf of His people and in accordance with His will. We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, for whom He has called according to His purpose. According to His purpose. How can I benefit from my pain? And we've been speaking about pain over the last few weeks. And just to say, Vernon has prepared a concise PowerPoint presentation on today's sermon, which I'm not going to use, because then I'll be feeling as if I'm standing in a lecture room with my students. But that presentation is available to any one of you who would like to have it. And so please indicate to Frank or the technical people at the back, and the church office will send it to you. But where is God when it hurts? It's a question I think each and every one of us has asked. When we have been done in, when we have lost someone, when we have been treated unfairly, we ask the question, where is God when we are hurting? It's an old age question. Solomon in Ecclesiastes asks the same question. So what do people get for all their hard work and struggles, asks Solomon. Even at night their minds don't rest. It doesn't make sense at all. Our lives are often filled with pain. There are times in our lives when we can't discern the will of God in our lives because we are bogged down in some other torment in our lives. We don't know all the reasons for pain in the world, but we can perhaps reflect on some reasons. God gives us a freedom of choice, and sometimes we bring this pain on ourselves. The freedom to make choices, the freedom to choose between what is right and wrong, good and bad. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, puts it this way: everything can be taken from man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances is to choose one's own way. We do make poor choices. We often hurt ourselves. And God could easily wipe out this pain in the world by simply eliminating evil. But I suppose if He did that, He'd have to eliminate us as well. Because each and every one of us has sinned and at some point in our lives has just been evil, either to ourselves or to someone else. Yes, God could eliminate all the hurt and all the pain in the world by simply removing our freedom to make choices. Pain is a warning light that something is wrong. And if we didn't have the warning light, we would often continue in the wrong direction and we'd continually hurt ourselves. So look out and discern that warning light in your life and in my life. We are responding to pain is what makes us human. We don't need to waste the pain that we bear. I'm not sure about you, but we have a friend in the family who lost her husband at a very young age to cancer. And she had a young son. And I'm talking 30, 40 years ago. Marjorie has lived with this pain to the point of bitterness. She is unable to lift herself out of it. Know that there's purpose in pain, and that we are able to handle it, and we are able to overcome it. Viktor Frankl once again says, those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. I can't speak for myself because I'm a man, but a woman will know that in childbirth there is pain. But there's a purpose to that pain. We've been very fortunate as a family. These last few weeks, the family's been breeding, so there's been 3 children born into the family. Good job, But there's a joy, there's excitement, there's a happiness, there's a purpose to bringing a life into the world through pain. No matter what the pain you may be bearing today, know that we are able to overcome it. And that's what we're going to explore in the next few minutes. We know that all things God works for the good of those who love Him. We know that in all things, God works. God works for those who love Him, who've been called according to His purpose. And we have to uncover and discern God's purpose for ourselves. Rick Warren's book, A Purpose-Driven Church, A Purpose-Driven Life, speaks to a number of these traits. To know and love God. We have the capacity to know and love God. We are able to come into fellowship. We are able to worship. To love our neighbors as we love ourselves. We are called into discipleship. We are called to serve others. We are called to ministry. We make a difference, not in the world. It starts with making a difference for one another. As we share our pain, as we witness to our own pain, we witness to others' pain. Have you gone through all of this for nothing, asks Paul to the Galatians? Is it all really for nothing? Use your pain to draw closer to God in worship. You can run to God, or you can run from God. And we do both, don't we? We do both. We run to God, but so often we just run from Him. We need to draw close to God. We need to have purpose and be directed. And we can only be honest with God as we wrestle with our pain and the circumstances that we may find ourselves in today. Paul says to the Corinthians, we were crushed and overwhelmed, and we saw how powerless we were to help others. Even that was good, for then we put everything into the hands of God, who alone could save us, and He did help us. So the first thing we do in pain is we don't run from God. But I beseech you, run to Him. To know Him and to love Him more, we will uncover the greatness of a God working and living within us. And so we draw closer to one another in fellowship. If you will allow it, pain will deepen our love for each other. Pain will mature our love for one another, because suffering sensitizes us to one another's needs. I've seen pain turn the most self-centered people into sympathetic people. You know the charismatic leader. The charismatic leader is one that's okay to stand here. The charismatic preacher. The charismatic politician. The charismatic teacher or the charismatic headmaster. They're fine out there in the open, on the stage. But they dare to walk out there. Take note of charismatic characters. Do you see Putin running around with a machine gun? He gets others to do the work. The charismatic preacher is too scared to face you one-to-one. He'll have others doing the hospital visiting the sick, because the power is invested in himself. Pain will draw you close to other people if you are honest to God. And in our sharing of our pain with one another, we come into a deeper level of fellowship. We come to do what God has called us to do, and that is to serve. So it's fine for me to be preaching to you this morning. But judge me not as I stand here, but what I do out there. That is what God calls us to, servant leadership. It's the deepest level of fellowship that we can encounter when we love our neighbors as ourselves and when we serve. And in serving, we will grow spiritually and closer to God and find healing to the pain that we are enduring. Use pain to grow more like Jesus in our discipleship. Sometimes it takes a painful situation to make us change our ways. So even though Jesus was the Son of God's Son, he learned obedience and suffering. Obedience and suffering. The book of Hebrews speaks the following words: suffering made Jesus perfect, and now he can save forever all who obey him. It also makes us resilient. It makes us stronger. Paul speaks about being in jail, being whipped, being beaten with rods, stoned with stones, faced dangers from flooded rivers, shivered in the cold. But he also says, we've pressed on every side by troubles, but we are not crushed and we are not broken. We can handle unbelievable pain if we understand and see the purpose behind it. This is the reason we may never become discouraged. If we are discouraged and we're enduring our pain everlasting, there's something wrong with our ministry to one another. Our spiritual being is being renewed day and day after day. And pain sensitizes you and me to the pain of others. You feel it in others. If you have gone through a terrible situation, a divorce, you've lost somebody, you've been rejected, use our pain to identify with the pain of others. My brother-in-law lost his father some years ago. He just couldn't get over it. So he attended Grief Share. I think Ina may have run it. And as he was in community with others that were in the same situation of him, so God's Spirit lifted him into a place of healing. Wherever you have had a pain in, God wants to use that to help others. Your deepest life message will come out of your deepest pain. So don't waste your pain. It serves as a testimony and as a witness to others and the world. And so I want to conclude this morning. If you are in this sanctuary today, and you are in some place where you feel it's not for you, you are experiencing some or other pain, then know that we are here for you and you for me. Know that we are resilient and that God has not crushed us, but continually works in our lives and builds us up. Not that we are better or less than each other, but that in God we are with each other and live in one another and share with one another, and love is the greatest gift of all. And so it's my prayer that we leave here today with or without our pain, but that we know, firstly, that there's a God who won't allow us to be crushed and broken, and we have a responsibility towards one another. That we need to share that pain, and that we may not even understand your pain, but that we know something about the pain in our own lives, and we can minister to one another and build one another up, so that we are not crushed and broken. but that we leave here knowing God's Spirit in our lives and God working deeply within each one of us. May God bless you today and the days ahead. Amen.